I'm Nathan Tabor, and thanks for joining me in step 2 here, identifying. So you've admitted you have a problem or an issue. Now we want to get to what's causing that. And just so you know, you're not alone. You're not the only person who goes through these things. I go through these things. That's why I put this together. I still go through these things. So don't, feel like, oh my gosh, I can't talk to anyone about this. I can't go through this process. Because everybody has their problems. So what we want to do in this step is identify what's causing the problem. So I want you to think about this. Just take a moment and think about this question. What is causing your problem? What do you think it is? It could be that. But then I also want you to step back and think about it this way. Is that the real root of the problem? Is that actually what's causing it? Or is that the symptom? Is that what you think it is? Because sometimes in our lives, we can have something that is causing us a conflict or a disagreement, and we look at it real quick and say, oh, this is the problem. When in reality, that's not really the problem. Because as you know, every argument, every disagreement, every conflict has an underlying issue. Or maybe it has multiple underlying issues. So that's what we just have to really look at during this process. So take this for an example. A husband and a wife, they have arguments because, maybe one person doesn't help around the house enough, or maybe one person spends too much money. And so it starts this argument. It could be as simplistic as that is the real issue. It could just stop there. But probably if it's going a little overboard, or the argument escalates to a point that it's like, whoa, that didn't deserve that amount of excitement behind it, or this person won't stop this behavior even though I've talked to them about it numerous times. It might not be about the chores. It may not be about the money. It may be about something else. Because when you get into things like that, that's normally their symptoms. We're seeing the symptom, but the problem is much deeper. Maybe the person who's not doing the chores the way they should, has issues that maybe they had a hoarder in their family, or maybe they're a little bit OCD. Maybe they just really like to have things clean all the time and to have things organized. But they don't know how to express themselves. So it comes off as they're just all the time, telling you shouldn't be doing this and you need to keep this cleaner. And it comes off as that's the problem, but that's not really. Or the person who's, spending too much money. Maybe they, didn't grow up with a lot, or maybe they're looking for security through material things. So it looks like they have a money issue, which they do, but that's not the real issue. Their issue is they need to, discuss about their, lack of security in their life, or their perception of material things, or their own value that they bring to the relationship. Also maybe their father or their mother was a big spender, and so they've grown accustomed to a lifestyle. You just don't know. And that's which during this process of identity, you got to really dig in. Because if you just go to the first thing that you think is the issue, then what's causing it, you could be right, but there could be more. So what you really have to do is dig into this. Really talk about things. Sit down and write out what you're going to be working with, the pros and the cons, anything that you know about, anything that you can find out about the situation. This is really kind of detective work. And so to get the full benefit of this problem-solving process, to really get the outcome that you want and the outcome that you desire, it's critical, absolutely critical, that you get to the root cause. So even if my example didn't apply to you, you don't have that issue in your life, take your issue that you have, or issues, and plug it in and say, what's the real problem? Think of it as weeds in your yard. You can go out and pluck the head off of the weed, but if you leave the roots, what happens? Other weeds grow back. So if you're going to go through this process, quickly you can go by and rip the heads off of all the weeds and make it look nice and pretty for a time, but you still have the root issues. And so those weeds are going to grow back and your issues are going to come back. So if you're going to do this, you're going to take the time to do it. Why not just go ahead and do it the right way? Now, even when you deal with these issues, even when you go through this process, what happens? There's other weeds that are going to grow that you haven't dealt with. Or there's still going to be weeds that grow back even in the exact same spot that you just dealt with. So this is an ongoing process. So once you identify the root cause, once you've identified what's really down in there for that issue, is when you have to start developing your action plan. And that's when you'll start seeing the results as you start to implement that. Because if you don't get to that, bottom, that root, no matter what you implement, you're not going to get the results that you want long term. So as you start to identify these root causes, you got to be really honest with yourself. You got to really open up. There are things that we don't want to tell other people. There are, actions of our own that we know down deep the real reason we're doing it, but we really probably wouldn't discuss that with others. And not that you have to, not at this point, and you may never have to, but you at least got to discuss them with yourself. You at least got to be honest in this process. So dig in. Really identify the root cause. Take ownership for what you need to. If the problem is you, then you need to identify that the problem is you and why are you acting this way. If it's someone else, you need to try to dig in and figure out what their root problems are and how you can help them, how you can address what's going on with them that's affecting you. So you've got your list. Hopefully you've downloaded the written plan. So you've admitted where you are in step 1. Now, as you take that sheet, get that out. Look at, you've written down what you've admitted. The second step here is then to identify. So in that written sheet, write down you got one problem, write down everything that you think could be the cause of that. Then take your other sheet. You got another problem, write down every issue. You might have 2 sheets in front of you. You might have 1. You might have 20 or 30. You do this for each process. And it's going to take a little bit of time to do this. But as you do this, you'll start seeing things that you didn't think even existed. You'll be like, oh. And some of them are going to be really easy to resolve, and some of them are going to take time. Some of them are going to be harder to address. But as you do this, I promise you, you're going to get the results that you desire, but it might take time. So dig in. Find that root cause. Really be honest with yourself. That's critical. And make sure you're writing all of this down. If you're only doing it in your mind, or you're keeping it in like little scratch pieces of paper here and there, being disorganized during this process is going to not get you where you want to go. So if you haven't downloaded those written plans yet and printed them out, go over and visit nathantabor.com. And that's NATHANTAB as in boy OR.com/law of order. And they're free. So you can download it right there, save it to your desktop, and print as many copies as you need. And if you want to see these videos, if you need to go back to step 1 or you want to go to another step, that will also be at nathantabor.com/law of order. I want to encourage you in this. Take the time to do this. If you don't like where you are, you don't like how your life is going, you are the one who can make the changes in your life to get the results that you desire. If you got any questions, any comments, please let me know. And I hope you'll share this with others so that they can start this process in their life as well.